Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome to today's Members' Forum. Firstly, some safety information. I'd like to draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure. Please exit the building from the nearest exit and congregate by the cathedral. Full details of the questions submitted to Member Forum and the written replies were published on the Council's website. The groups have submitted their questions in priority order and are presented rotating around the party groups. Each councillor has a maximum of 2 questions about one topic or 2 separate questions about 2 different topics. Councillors have a maximum of 2 supplementary questions. If a councillor asks 1 question, they have 1 supplementary. If a councillor asks 2 questions, they have 1 supplementary per question asked. So we'll start with green question number 1 on HMOs from Councillor Gemfrey to Councillor Eddy.
Yes, thank you on the response. I suppose my question, and I appreciate that Councillor Parsons will be responsible for looking into this, is to what further could be done to strengthen the HMO policy, because the current policy, from what I'm hearing from residents, doesn't quite seem fit for purpose, in that there's, in my ward of Lawrence Hill, there are quite a lot of HMOs getting squashed together even under the current guidance, and also what can be done to tackle landlords who aren't sticking to their guidance, because from what residents say, unfortunately some officers aren't being particularly helpful around that. Thank you.
Can I thank you for your supplementary? I mean, I appreciate this as a increasing concern. It certainly affects Central Bristol, your wards, other wards, Avonmouth, etc. Only last month, the council actually brought a citywide licensing scheme for HMOs. We want to actually see how effective that is and keenly work with good landlords, but also enforce standards with ones which are not so good. So we're expecting a report back for Councillor Parsons and myself, probably just after Christmas. I also would emphasise the Economy and Skills Committee is actually looking at Article 4 exemptions and potentially for some more HMOs in other parts of the city, actually quashing the right to actually use permitted development rights. The committee, I believe, is looking at that in November. Could I also, what on a different issue, Councillor Y, good. Just say, can I thank you and Councillor Mohammed for your patience for dealing for a fair settlement for people, residents and tenants affected by the Barton House incidents. As you may be aware, a report is coming to our committee in a few weeks' time, which hopefully will improve the Home Choice Bristol deal available for tenants.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. Labour question number 1, Lana Cost Road, from Councillor Self to Councillor Williams. You have 1 supplementary.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, do I not get a second supplementary question?
No, I believe you only submitted 1 question.
Oh, my apologies, thank you.
That's not a problem. Councillor Self, please continue.
Yes, thank you for the reply. I was expecting the reply from Councillor Parsons, but you've explained to me that he's not here today. But it does appear from this answer that Councillor Parsons doesn't want to correct the record. So my follow-up question is that when the nearby housing development was completed, was in planning in 2016, this land was shown as grassland, and that was shown on the plans. And you mentioned the need to protect hedgehogs and slowworms. The council says that a meanwhile site is an area of land that's vacant and waiting for future development. The land was identified as an area for proposed development in the 2023 local plan. I hope myself and local residents are consulted on that. But pending redevelopment, I'd like to ask, could the grassland be returned? Could the land be returned to grassland when the van dwellers finally leave?
Lord Mayor, thanks, Councillor, for her supplementary. Yes, I'm answering questions on vehicle dweller policy in the absence of Councillor Parsons, and Councillor Eddy is answering all other matters on housing. That's because vehicle dwellers is a shared responsibility between Councillor Parsons and myself. I'm not familiar, as she will understand, with the full planning history of this site. All I will say to her, though, if a meanwhile site application does come forward for this site, and the council is looking for more meanwhile sites across the city. We're looking for 250 extra pitches by the end of this municipal year. Then, of course, that is actually will actually need planning permission. So the normal processes will be followed through if that site is identified as a meanwhile site.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Lib Dem question number 1, the SEND spies scandal investigation from Councillor Varney, and I believe Councillor Mack will be answering this question as Deputy Leader. Is that correct?
I think we were going to invite written supplementary.
Okay. Well, if you're happy to send your supplementary question to Councillor Dyers, who's not here, unfortunately, due to ill health, that'd be brilliant.
That's fine. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Conservative question number 1 from Planning and Infrastructure Bill from Councillor Weston, but he's not present, so we'll move on. Green question number 2, Children Services staff from Councillor Freeman to Councillor Townsend, and you have 1 supplementary.
Thank you. I just wondered whether Christine could clarify, given that you mentioned some of the domestic violence specialists, how that affects our domestic violence support. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So there's 3 specialist domestic violence staff have been recruited, 1 for the north, 1 for the east and 1 for the south. So that increases our capacity to intervene earlier and support children and families that are affected by domestic violence at an earlier stage, as all of those teams are multi-professional and multidisciplinary.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Labour question number 2, tribunals from Councillor Bales, but she doesn't appear to be present. She's just walking in. Just in time. Okay. So I'll just repeat that. So Labour question number 2, tribunals from Councillor Bales to Councillor Townsend, and you have 1 supplementary question.
Sorry, only. If tribunal costs are shared across budgets, why can't the SEND spying investigation be funded from corporate budgets like the Chief Executive's contingency or audit and governance instead of CYP services?
So the inquiry that's about to take place was not part of the budget setting in February, and therefore there is no set budget for this inquiry, and it falls therefore to the CYP and the education budget to enable that to take place, because the budget was set for anticipated work that was in the party's manifesto, and this particular area wasn't in that, and so it's an extra piece of work.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Lib Dem question number 2, community cohesion from Councillor Classic to Councillor Williams. You have 1 supplementary.
Thank you. So thank you for the response. I'm pleased to know the Council's being proactive, ensuring all residents of Bristol feel safe and included. Would you agree that it's the responsibility of all of us in this chamber to foster a culture of inclusive community in Bristol?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I would agree that it is all of our responsibility, whatever party we're in this chamber, to make our city as cohesive as possible. And it's not a one-off event doing that work. We have had several events, 2 in the conference hall since the disturbances last year, which Liberal Democrat, Green and Labour councillors all participated in. And there have been lots of behind-the-scenes discussions as well about how we foster a more cohesive city. But this is not something you achieve overnight. Building community cohesion is a long-term piece of work that requires effort right across the council by members and officers. We know there are people active in our society who wish to undermine that work, wish to spread myths, lies even about our modern society. It's up to all of us, all four parties in this chamber should feel the threat from the people who foster that culture of division and anxiety and threat, and it's up to all of us to counter it.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Conservative question number 2, managing Durham Downs, from Councillor Galandris and Councillor Williams. You have 2 supplementary questions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now, you know, Lord Mayor, I'm a very placid, easygoing person, but I do get irritated when people don't answer the question that I've asked, and it's very annoying that I have to use a supplementary. Stephen, stop smiling, 'cause I'm cross. My first question is nothing to do with van dwellers, so I don't know why you've answered on van dwelling. That's very, very naughty. Now, what I was saying is there is considerable antisocial and criminal behaviour taking place on the Downs, and I'm referring particularly to things like the motorcycles and the cars that are racing on the Downs itself and on the roads. They're using the roads as a racetrack, and what I was asking is, what physical measures, such like CCTV or humps or more posts, because you have put some posts in, what measures are you going to take to try and tackle the criminal and antisocial behaviour? And this isn't to do with van dwelling.
I feel a lot of people think I've been naughty this week, Lord Mayor, but well, add that to the list. In terms of, in the very last sentence of his supplementary, he mentioned criminal activity. Of course, that is a matter primarily for the police rather than the council. But both I and the authority in general have been asking the Police and Crime Commissioner to dedicate more resource to actively policing the area around the Downs. We know there is a shortage of police officers at the moment. Claire Moody has told us new officers have been recruited and will be allocated broadly to the BS9 area that he and I both represent. I guess it's then a matter for the question of police priorities as to how they intervene to catch the usually young men with their faces covered who are riding vehicles on the grassland itself, which I think is what really frightens people, and I know has interrupted education lessons taking place on the Downs. So this is a multifaceted issue which the police really do need to step up and play their part.
Thank you, Madam. My second supplementary, because I still haven't had my answer, my question answered, is what about CCTV?
He will know, or if he doesn't, he will now, that we have to go through a deliberative process in order to install closed-circuit television. We have to, first of all, make sure that we're not infringing anyone's privacy in the area. In his question, he mentions Parry's Lane. Lord Mayor, it's partly in your ward and partly in mine, but I'm guessing he would think of Savile Road as well. And of course, people do live around there, so that would be a factor. I'm afraid I do have to mention cost as well. I'm advised that installing a single CCTV and post and the cost with it is £30,000, and we would need more than one CCTV camera in that area in order to be effective. So he may want to bear in mind the cost burden to the local authority if we were to do that, for what we hope will actually be a temporary problem if the policies that the administration is putting forward later this week actually do have effect over the next 6 months.
Thank you. Green question number 3, Mobile Overdose Prevention Centre, from Councillor Levan to Councillor Williams. You have 1 supplementary.
Thank you. Does the Chair support in principle the idea of an overdose prevention centre in Bristol, and will you write to the Policing Minister to ask her to enable one, just as they have done up in Scotland?
First of all, Lord Mayor, I'll answer that as the Chair of the committee and on behalf of the authority. We have to operate within the law, and as she knows, at the moment the law does not allow for a safe consumption room in England. In Scotland, they've adopted a different approach. But I can now answer as an individual, as a politician, and she knows this. Yes, I do think it would form an important part to how we deal with drug addiction as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue and work with people to reduce harm. I'm entirely sympathetic personally to that. And if we can find a way of me writing to the new Home Secretary about that, I will certainly do so, and we'll certainly work with her on the drafting of that letter.
Thank you. Labour question number 3, Lana Cost Row from Councillor Dudd to Councillor Williams, and you have 1 supplementary.
Thank you, and I've got to say this is another appalling answer on this subject, because I clearly asked for dates for when legal action was taken, and the reason I've asked this question is because officers told me back in January that they were taking legal action, myself and Councillor Kaz Self, that they were taking legal action against this site. So I've asked this question because I don't think I was being told the truth by officers on that. And it's clear from this answer that nothing's happened since January. So do you believe those officers were telling me the truth back in January? And have you only started to act now because the BBC have covered this story?
I don't think it's ever helpful, Lord Mayor, for any of us, particularly in a public forum such as this, is to question the honesty or professionalism of officers. So I'm not going to go down that road. As I said to his ward colleague, Councillor Self, earlier, I don't know the full background to this site. I can answer questions on the generality of vehicle dwellers policy, but on the specifics of this site, I simply don't know. All I will undertake on behalf of Councillor Parsons is we will write to him with a full answer in terms of what he's asked here, including the dates that he's put on record as asking for.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Lib Dem question number 3, school organisation strategy from Councillor Kent to Councillor Townsend, and you have 2 supplementary questions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'd like to thank the Chair for her answers. First supplementary, I'm a bit confused by the terminology that's used regarding to whether the plan is seeking to reduce the pupil admission number through the possible closure of schools. Especially within my area, your answer is that it's looking to reduce forms of entry. But if the school is one form of entry, would you agree that logically that would actually be a closure?
Yes, if that's... But the strategy is to avoid the smaller schools closing. When a school closes, it's pretty much gone forever. And so those schools with more than 2 forms of entry are the ones that we will be looking to first to manage the reduction in the availability of reception places, so that those other smaller schools are better able to recruit students and maintain the financial viability that is needed in order for them to survive. Schools are funded on a per pupil basis, and therefore schools, and particularly small schools, that year on year are not getting probably at least 25 or 26 out of their 30 places filled, will quickly become financially unviable. And that is the exact approach of the strategy, is to try to avoid that. We've seen small primary schools close over the last few years, and arguably, had there been a planning strategy in place, we wouldn't have seen those schools closing. But there has been a lack of school place planning under the mayoral system. This is the first reception to post-16 strategy that has existed for over 10 years, and it will be annually updated. So the information we have now will obviously be different this time next year, because there'll be another year's worth of births, and there would have been possibly some new planning applications come through, so we'll be able to include what the formula enables us to include from those new houses in that particular area. So whilst this is a huge piece of work now, year on year, it will be an updated version of what we've got, so that we are better able to manage and understand what the needs of our children are and where those children are living.
Thank you very much for that answer. What you've just said sounds very different to the exact wording within the documents itself as part of the consultation. Let me just read you one paragraph from the documents. It says, to reduce oversupply of primary school places in the Hengrove and Whitchurch Park planning area, a reduction of at least 2 forms of entry would be viable. There are currently 4 one-form entry schools in the area. In light of this, it would be most appropriate to reduce PAN by at least 60 places across the planning area at 2 of the schools in the area. Can you see why an average citizen would interpret that as a plan seeking to manage 2 primary schools to close in the area?
Possibly, but the planning area is wider than 4 primary schools.
Sorry, those were the exact words from the document issued in the consultation. I'll send them to you, the link.
Well, yeah, okay. I do know, I have read it. What I would say is the Hengrove and Whitchurch area is wider than 4 it's wider than 4 primary schools. Those are the ones you're focusing on because they're 1 forms. Does that make sense?
Sorry, Chair. That's the exact wording from the document.
Okay, so
focuses on the 4 1-form entry.
Right, I think the
we want to avoid school closures. That's the overarching aim of the strategy, is to avoid.
Right, thank you, Councillor Townsend. Conservative question number 3, strategic transport corridors, from Councillor Hugger to Councillor Plowden. You have 2 supplementaries.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, thank you, Councillor Plowden, for your response. I don't have any specific supplementary questions, but I will say that I look forward to working with transport officers to combat the issues that I highlighted in the second question. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, and I look forward to working with you and Graham on a low traffic neighbourhood in a Tory ward. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Green question number 4, library lies.
Lord Mayor, can I just make a point of order?
Of course.
Under Council Procedure Rule 9.5, scope of questions, statements and petitions, section B, which talks about defamatory, frivolous or offensive. There is no such department as the Bristol Labour Department of Fake News, and you did vote against an amendment to rule out library closures, so there is a basis for the claims. I'd like the member to clarify his remarks, which are clearly demonstrably false, and perhaps take the opportunity to rule out library closures so we can clear the matter up once and for all. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Could you respond to Councillor Renard's concerns, please?
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite clear that there's been literature delivered out on the doorstep to residents that contains clear misinformation suggesting that library closures are incoming when there's been absolutely no material basis for that. I'd like to move on to my question to Councillor Williams, and I realise he's been very busy today, so thank you so much for your thorough answer to my question. And sitting on the Task and Finish group, as many Free Labour colleagues have as well, it's been clear to me that while previous administrations salami-sliced our library service, we're now looking at how we can restore opening hours in parts of our city that really need it the most. And we're clearly going to need the library's budget preserved to do that. So can I get confirmation that unless the Labour government try and slash local government funding in the funding review coming up, will you reassure us that our library's budget will be protected to the penny for the next financial year?
I thank my colleague, committee colleague and Task and Finish group colleague for his question. I'm not sure about salami slicing the budget by the previous administration. I think it's more of a chopping off a complete hind leg because they reduced it by a quarter and said they were keeping libraries open across the city, which certainly is true that no buildings were closed. But if you chop a quarter out of the budget, slash the opening hours, put in place a recruitment freeze, that's hardly protecting the library service. So I think how Councillor Fraser's characterised the Labour campaign was perhaps fair. But to answer his question, in last year's budget, we had the library's budget, along with all sorts of other budgets, on the table in the mixture of potential cuts to the dreadful budget inheritance that we had last year. And we answered lots of questions about it, and I repeatedly ruled out cutting that budget, and that's where we ended up. There was no cut to the library budget in the first year of the Green Liberal Democrat administration. I can now confirm, Lord Mayor, after a meeting of the committee chairs last week, we have decided that the library budget for 2026-2027, roughly 5.2 million, will be fully protected for another year and will be not on the table at all for any cuts.
Thank you.
The applause interrupted how I was going to finish the answer. Yes, for 1 year, which is what I heard from Labour benches. That's because we can only set our budget from 1 year to another. Until we get 3-year multi-year settlements, which the new Labour government has offered us, we can't really protect any budget with any certainty beyond 12 months. So it's up to you to sort that out.
Thank you. Right, we'll move on to Labour question number 4, fish pond arsonist attack from Councillor Martin to Dyer. Councillor Dyer obviously isn't here, so if you want to send your supplementary question to him, we'll answer that. Lib Dem question number 4, visitors levy from Councillor Clark to Councillor Brown, and you have 1 supplementary.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Thank you very much for your response. Oh, he's there. Sorry, I was looking the wrong way. And Councillor Williams has answered so many questions. I was looking automatically to you. Thank you very much. I would just really like to ask you if we are able to be furnished with some timelines when you have them at your disposal and you have an idea of how this project is going to progress.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So yeah, the feasibility study itself, which we voted on in the budget, that's a budget amendment to commission that feasibility study. That is in its final stages prior to publication. So that will be going through those over the next few days and weeks. With regards to the letter to the Secretary of State, how long is a piece of string? We assume that the letter will be passed on to the new Secretary of State because we wrote it last week, and then there was a government reshuffle. We will also be writing to the new ministers within new Secretary of State and ministers within the Department of the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and we will be making strong representations on funding, devolution and other matters over the coming days, and look forward to responses from the new ministers.
Thank you. Conservative question number 4, preservation of civic treasures. Councillor Eddy, if you want to send your supplementary question to Councillor Dyer, and I'm sure supplementary questions, Councillor Dyer, and I'm sure he'll respond.
Mayor, could I just save time by just saying, can I thank the leader for his response? Since submitting the questions, I have learned that the silverware in question is actually in the ownership of the University of Bristol. So I'm delighted the City Council isn't involved in trashing or vandalising any of our historic treasures.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. Green question number 5, disposable barbecues from Councillor Ralston to Councillor Williams, and you have 1 supplementary. Oh, I don't think she's here. Labour question number 5, private renter support from Councillor Peat to Councillor Eddy, and you have 2 supplementary questions.
Thank you. I do appreciate the response, but I noticed that some of the homes referenced were already in the pipeline before this administration took office in May. Since taking office, this administration has scrapped over 2,000 council homes, delayed key direct delivery schemes, and now we see that it's attempting to remove affordable housing from the corporate risk register. That's without mentioning that existing council stock is being converted into temporary accommodation, which is pushing more and more people into the private rental sector.
Please, Councillor.
I'm getting there. It may be that affordable housing is being monitored through the corporate KPIs, but is this really good enough when it's not being prioritised in the risk report?
Can I thank Councillor Peat for a question? It's not a lucky day in my view. Councillor Parsons, who clearly can't be here, is at our council housing conference in Liverpool, so I'm answering on his behalf. He has many strengths, probably a lot more diplomacy than me, so I'm going to say it how it is. I'm not a member of this administration, but actually what we're seeing is not Mickey Mouse figures. There are actually almost 1,800 affordable homes being delivered. There are actually 1,900 in the active pipeline. We are working very strongly with our partners to actually augment that. When Councillor Parsons and I took up the reins of the service area, we discovered that actually officers in this housing delivery area were utterly aghast. They believed the actual figures promoted by Labour and the mayoral administration were wholly unreliable, unrealistic. So we have been working to actually deliver proper homes for people on the ground. The other thing is, clearly in the mayor's obsession with actually generating headlines for new homes, he'd actually clearly completely ignored our responsibility, which is a solemn responsibility to ensure the existing social housing stock is properly maintained and looked after. After the absolutely execrating criticisms from the social housing regulator, this administration is actually putting in place a real meaningful way, which is programmed to improve and to bring up a housing stock to the standards our tenants have every right to expect.
Thank you. Did you have another supplementary question?
I would just...
I've got down as 2. Yeah, she's got 2 questions, so she gets 2 supplementary questions.
I would just say that it is... I suppose my question is this an officer-led administration or is this a politician-led administration?
I suspect actually Councillor Pete's question is purely a rhetorical question. The fact is we ended up with the most anti-democratic, non-transparent system under the mayoral system. In my view, the committee system has been far more... And to be frank, Councillor Pete, at every policy committee, including homes and housing delivery, the hand is out there for the Labour group to play its part in actually being constructive and actually working to improve the lot. Sadly, they ran away from that, playing politics at the cost of Bristolians.
Right, so we move on to Lib Dem question number 5, e-scooter parking base, from Councillor Brown to Councillor Plowden, and you want supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Plowden, for your answer. It is really welcome to hear that parking bays are being put in because it's long overdue and it's hopefully a sign of a better working relationship between ourselves and the West of England Combined Authority as well, that that funding is now coming through from them for that. Can I ask if you have made or if you're planning to make representations to national government about legislating for the use of scooters in general beyond the trial and the pilot that we have at the moment?
Short answer is no. I think we'd have to do that in combination with the West of England Combined Authority. It's something that is very high on my mind because we have... and it's quite concerning that there don't seem to be any plans from this Labour government other than just continuously renew this trial when we know that all over the city we've got people using illegal scooters, which seem to be actually something that if we could get properly regulated, there might actually be in the interests of the people who use them, safety and the safety of the general public. So I'd really welcome something that actually is a fairly fundamental review of the way we licence and think about vehicles. Because you've got mobility scooters on one hand, which are limited to a very slow speed, but are allowed on the carriageway. And then you've got a whole raft of other vehicles which are modern, and the government is failing to keep up with the legislation. But I do think that I want to be careful before I rush into writing to the government, given that we have a trial. And we want that trial to be a success. Bristol, I'm told, is by far and away the most busy place for anyone to operate an e-scooter scheme. So we're doing something right, but we need to get in control of both the legal ones and the currently illegal ones, and make sure we've got a really good system for micromobility.
Thank you. Conservative question number 5, Stockwood Shops area improvement, from Councillor Morris to Councillor Brown. You have 2 supplementaries.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. First of all, it's been a disaster. What should have been a good news story for our community has turned into a public relations disaster. The communication, or lack of, has not been good enough. And it was only by Councillor Hucker escalating to the Chief Executive did we get a few of the answers. And actually, we've got information here today
Sorry,
which
Councillor Morris, could we just
weren't
skip
aware.
to the questions,
So,
please?
do you agree that there are some lessons that we could learn from this project? As the first board.
Thank you. Yes, yes, it's a short answer. To give a slightly longer answer, we've got, as you know, we've got the High Streets Task and Finish Group established, and one of the things that it's doing is looking at the experience of the High Streets programme to date, and any learnings that can come from that from an economic development point of view, but I'm also keen to understand things from the perspective of councillors, and as I think I said in my answer, I am intending to write to all the councillors who have had high street schemes in their areas to get that feedback, but you know, we've started that conversation early.
Absolutely, thank you. And the one thing that would support the high street in Stockwood is the retention of the car park behind Stockwood Library, which the previous Labour administration put up for disposal in Cabinet in January 24. So as a population with roughly 1 in 5 people aged over 70, could you see a way that we could incorporate that into reviewing the high streets and how we can enhance them and keep them for the future? Please.
I think I need to be careful about the boundaries of the remit of both the High Streets Task and Finish Group and also the Economy and Skills Policy Committee, but I do understand the point you're making, and I'd suggest that when we do when I write to you for feedback on the scheme, that you feed that in, and I'll subsequently discuss that with chairs and officers accordingly.
Thank you. Green question number 6, council tenants, fences and gates, from Councillor Townsend to Councillor Eddie. Is that Annie Townsend or Christine Townsend? Lovely. You have 1 supplementary.
Thank you. Thank you for the answers. The website does say that there's a 10-year maintenance programme for fences for our council tenants. That speaks to me, I'm sure it speaks to anybody, meaning that is actually a policy process and a policy kind of concept. Do you know whether there is maintenance programs? Because the website appears to say the one thing and then the officer response is something else.
Can I thank Councillor Townsend for a question? I'll be frank, I don't 100% know. I believe it is, but I will get officers to check and reply to you directly.
Thank you, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Labour question number 6, vehicle dwellers, from Councillor Blake to Councillor Williams, and you have 2 supplementaries.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for deputising. Hopefully, Councillor Parsons will learn something about building council houses at his conference. Your answer isn't particularly clear to me. Bit slippery-shouldered. Read Duncombe Lane encampment. You say the team lack capacity, but then go on to say the police can take action. What we need is coordinated action to remove these vans because of the massively high impact they're having right next to our homes and schools. Are you going to take responsibility and get these vans moved?
Thanks, Calvin. Also, there are vehicle dwelling communities right across the city, and we do assess the impact that they are having on different communities. He's asked in his main question what's the difference in between the site in his ward and the site, in fact, I think it's in Eastern Ward, New Stadium Road. The assessment of New Stadium Road, that it was having a very high and detrimental impact on the neighbouring community. We had evidence from the police about that, of criminal activity. So it was assessed as high impact, and the council and the police had to make an intervention there, which has been successful. The vehicles have been dispersed and planters have been put in place to make sure that they don't come back. If he feels that the location he's referred to is having a high impact on the school and residents, if he could put that in writing to me and Barry, then we'll make sure that the site is assessed accordingly.
Thank you for that. My second supplementary is about the encampment on Goodneston Road. That's quadrupled since the IKEA site's been removed. And we've got an email, me and Ellie, from a significant business operating out of Goodneston Road, saying their business is being threatened because of the health and safety of the lorries and the kind of movements there. And so it's a simple question. Do major business concerns, do that amount to high impact? And therefore, could we do something about this encampment?
Yes, Lord Mayor. We do take into account the concerns of businesses, and that was, in fact, a material factor on New Stadium Road, which he will know is located to a very prominent business visited by people from all over the southwest of England, there's blue and yellow colours, who felt that it was having an adverse impact on their customers. So again, if he'd like to put into writing the business concerns, I assure him we'll deal with it. But on his broader question of what powers we lack, I mean, we've given a full answer. The one that we would most appreciate help from the Labour group is number 7. The biggest impediment we have to take an enforcement against vehicle dwellers where we need to is the fact we cannot trace the ownership of a caravan. That is a loophole in the law that only the government and only Parliament can change. So through your leader, perhaps, if you'd like to take this up with the new Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, who's now coordinating government policy on a wide front, it's an issue in his constituency and in his city, then we can make progress together.
Let's do it.
Lovely, thank you very much. Lib Dem question number 6, support for everyday essentials from Councillor Clark. If you could send your supplementaries to Councillor Dyer.
I can't ask Councillor Mack.
It's down as sending supplementaries to Councillor
okay,
Dyer.
all right, thank you very much for clarification, thank you.
Conservative question number 6, East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood from Councillor Udin to Councillor Plowden. No, that's fine, not a problem. Green question number 7, Litter Lotto from Councillor Wilcox to Councillor Fodon. You have 1 supplementary.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm slightly embarrassed to say that Litter Lotto has ceased trading since I asked the question, so it's an invalid question anymore.
Thank you. Labour question number 7, East Bristol Livable Neighbourhoods from Councillor Breckles to Councillor Plowden, and you have 2 supplementaries.
Okay, thank you for your answers. So first supplementary, please can you share the consultation responses that the councils had from the emergency services with all the councillors with the EBL in part of their ward?
I don't know is the question, so I'll go and find out. So could you just, it'd be really helpful if you could put that in writing, Fabian.
Okay, I can do that. Second supplementary is, given the alarming reports of emergency vehicles getting held up by road closures and being unable to unlock bollards, what changes are being considered, and will they ensure that no emergency vehicle will be delayed if an amended version of the EBLN does become permanent?
I think I'd refer you back to my answer that we're working really closely with the emergency services, and particularly over the next few months when we're looking at the data from and the data will be published hopefully in December. We will be identifying where we need to make changes, particularly for access for the emergency service and waste services.
Thank you. Lib Dem question number 7, student exemption from council tax from Councillor Brown to Councillor Dyer. If you want to send your supplementary question directly to Councillor Dyer, please. Green question number 8, St Nick's Market from Councillor Gemfrey to Councillor Brown, and you have 1 supplementary.
Thank you. Yes, I I'm afraid I'm not fully satisfied by the answer. The residents who are affected tell me that this will be a rise of fees of over 40% for many of them. And although there is comment about there having been one-to-one meetings offered, some traders advised that that didn't happen or they weren't aware of that. Could you clarify? So I suppose I wanted to ask what further can be done to alleviate that, and can you clarify what the new alternate model is going to look like and how much that will cost? Sorry.
Yes, one question, one supplementary.
Focus on the last bit then. How much is the new model going to cost?
All right, thank you. I mean, I won't answer on specifics because obviously I've you know, that's an operational matter and personal matter, and you know, I'm happy to take those up outside of this forum with yourself, Councillor Gemfrey, accordingly. More broadly, the model that has been adopted, so the original proposal that went to the first phase of consultation was rejected by traders, or you know, and so we had to think again. And the model that is being adopted, and you'll be able to see this in the papers when they're published in around about a week's time, I think, or maybe even later this week. Time is a hazy concept at the moment, but there's two elements. One is to standardise fees across 6 different zones in the market that take into account footfall, but also equalise things between traders where irregularities have crept into the system over a number of years. And the other element is to phase that increase in over a course of 5 years in order to allow for regular monitoring and to ensure that that it doesn't have those counterproductive results that that some people are suggesting it will. So that's the two, hopefully provide some reassurance. So you will be able to see it when it comes out. The figure of 40% is not one that we recognise because that, but again, because of this equalisation, individual figures for individual traders will vary depending on what they had historically agreed terms.
Thank you. Labour question number 8, planning enforcement from Councillor Martin to Councillor Brown, but I don't think Councillor Martin's here. Lib Dem question number 8, Ashley Down Station, from Councillor Williams to Councillor Plowden. You have one supplementary.
Yes, Lord Mayor, thank Ed for his answer. Rather surprised that WECA have to do a survey in order to give us this information. There is a ticket machine Ashley Down Station that I'm sure records a lot of this information. People book via an app or online as well. So I'm surprised we'll need to wait for a survey. But the question I want to ask him, whether he would agree with me that given the significant public investment that was made in this site, 1 train per hour going to Fulton Abbey Wood or to Bristol Temple Meads is pretty useless, and it would be much better if the regular trains to Cardiff, Yates and Gloucester and Bristol Parkway stopped at this station as well, so that all of the residents in BS7, in Councillor Edwards's and Councillor Crawford's ward and neighbouring wards such as Ashley were able to take full advantage of this station, which I campaigned for a long time.
I agree. And but I don't know what more I can say. I did ask why that's not happening, and I got a very complicated answer about GWR and other things, which I really couldn't understand. One of the bits of paper I just got handed actually tells me some more information, because I think the wrong answer has been... I did point out myself that we haven't really answered the question. So in the first 6 months since the station opened, cumulative total of passengers is 66,000. The cumulative total of all passengers since opening is 95,000, and the top 5 destinations travelling from Ashlydown Station are Bristol Temple Meads, unsurprisingly, Brass Bar, Cardiff Central, Filton Abbey Wood and Lawrence Hill. And I think it's I think I'm right in saying that every train that does actually stop at the station is subsidised by WECA, and I look forward to working with the government and the WECA to try and regulise this and get this as a regular proper station which is served by many more trains.
Thank you. Green question number 9, Warden Road Waste Collection Project from Councillor Townsend to Councillor Eddy.
No, I've got no further questions, thanks.
Thank you.
Obviously, the response is an officer response approved by Councillor Parsons. Obviously, you've received various complaints from constituents to go to ask these questions, but to date, apparently the 5 tenanted households have not complained directly to estate management. I wonder whether you could encourage them to do likewise.
Thank you. Labour question number 9, short breaks for carers from Councillor Horchin to Councillor Townsend. You have 1 supplementary.
Thank you very much. It looks like an awful lot has been done over the summer, which is good news. And I look forward to the review on this matter very much so. I just wondered if it was the reverse to the 10% cuts or we found the money somewhere else.
So the budget included 36 additional full-time members of staff. 27 posts are now working with children in need. Every child that has a registered disability is a child in need. So we have an additional 27 members of staff working with children in need and their families. And as you correctly say, 2 hours is a short break. So the 10% cut of which you speak has been more than added to with the investment that came through the budget that you chose not to vote for.
Thank you. Lib Dem question number 9, resident parking schemes from Councillor Williams to Councillor Plowden, and you have 1 supplementary.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank Councillor Plowden for his answer. I mean, residents' parking schemes work very well where they've been implemented, and it was a completely disastrous decision by the previous Labour administration to stop the rollout of residents' parking to places such as Westbury Park, Henleys and other areas that abut the existing schemes. I'm glad a paper's going to his committee. Will he put on record the enthusiasm of this administration for reversing that previous Labour decision, and we will now roll out residents' parking schemes where there is consent? And can I urge him to consider Westbury Park and the streets of Henleys that are nearest the Downs to be in the first wave of those new schemes?
I was asked many questions of the previous administration about residents' parking because I simply could not understand why we weren't rolling them out when there was a clear evidence of need of people on the boundary. That includes my ward, where on one hand the administration asked the developers of Bedminster Green for £700,000 to mitigate the low parking by paying £700,000 through Section 106 for residents' parking, and then on the other hand simply refused to use that money that is in the bank to do what was right. So it was a bit like having a policy where you're only going to use one of your hands and rather than both hands of the policy. Utterly unexplainable. And as we went through the various permutations of why we will or won't be getting residents' parking, just about every answer I got was changed, and actually when you look at them cumulatively they became quite contradictory. So I'm very pleased that we are looking to roll out more residents' parking, and I think I will be looking at those areas on the periphery of the existing ones where we've got clear evidence that of displacement directly over the boundary, because you only need to be one street over and suddenly your street can be flooded with cars who don't want to pay either because you live there or because you're visiting for a pass. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and I note that amongst many, your residents would be apparently, according to you, and we may have a lot to find out that what appears to be councillors to be strong support may not be as strong. But so we will be looking not only to prioritise those on the edges, but also work very carefully with residents to make sure that there is that support in place to put them in place. And I look forward to doing this. Unfortunately, the 8 years of inaction has meant that we've now got quite a lot of demand, and we're going to have to be very clear about how we prioritise.
Thank you. Green question number 10, insurance claims from Councillor Russell to Councillor Plowden, and you have one supplementary.
Yeah, you might not have the answer right now, but I'm wondering how many of the injuries are related to weeds on the pavement. Weeds.
I don't have that. The system categorises the claims at a fairly high level and isn't subcategorised. So further than damage. Damage generally fall into two areas of public liability and motor fleet. But the list I've got of the top sort of things that are categorised doesn't include anything to do with weeds on pavements. So I can try and find out, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to actually go down that far into it. I'm just going to also say that an accident is really something without a cause. And so I think we should call them collisions or injuries because there was a concerted effort in the 1950s by the American Motor Association to change the word from crash to accident. And they've been so successful, we now all call them accidents. But actually, that was a deliberate concerted attempt by the motor industry to try and make it look like it's an act of God or it's something without blame. Whereas in fact, as we know, pretty much every injury, by definition, if we're paying it through insurance, is not an accident, it's an injury or a collision. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Labour question 10, Liberal Democrat question 10, and Labour question number 11 from Councillor Self, Coombs and King are all to Councillor Dyer. So if you wouldn't mind sending your supplementaries to him, and I'm sure he will reply. Labour question number 12 was withdrawn. I think we have time for one more. Labour question 13, sports investments from Councillor Dudd to Councillor Williams, and you have one supplementary.
It's okay, I've got no further questions. I'm happy with that.
That's fine. Labour question 14, Brislington Meadows from Councillor Horchin to Councillor Plowden. You have one supplementary if you wish.
I've just read what you've said, and it seems quite good, but it also says that the survey is only valid for 3 years, which means that was 4 months ago in my counting. So does this mean I can assure the residents they'll get another survey? Because they're really worried about it.
I'm not sure you can, because I've read this, and it looks to me like we've satisfied the planning conditions. They've satisfied the planning conditions. So.
Because it was done during the pandemic, and I can attest to it now. There's a lot more traffic on Bromera, and you said every 3 years, but 3 years have gone by.
I think that's something that we're going to have to take back to the planning officers. I would be very nervous about coming up with a definitive statement right now, when, as we know, planning laws are quite well controlled. So
Can I get your assurance we'll work on this?
It was just one supplementary.
I'd happily say yes to the supplementary.
Thank you. Labour questions 15 to 17 from Councillors Al Mugabi, King, Renard, again to Councillor Dyer. So if you wouldn't mind sending your supplementaries to him, and I'm sure he'll answer. And I think the last question today will be from Labour question 18, Black Bin collections from Councillor Renard to Councillor Fodor, and you have one supplementary.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the very selective inclusion of some statistics. Can we have in writing the breakdown of responses for those that were in favour and not in favour of keeping 2 weekly black bin collections, moving to 3 weekly bin collections, or moving to 4 weekly collections? Because I would have expected that information, given you've included some statistics in here. Thank you very much.
The statistics given are the highest scoring views of the public. That's why you were given those answers. But I'll look into it. I'll see if we can identify the figures you're looking for.
Thank you, Councillor Fodor. Well, that concludes Members' Forum. So look forward to seeing you all.
I just have a point of order.
Yes.
Is there a reason why people can't ask the Deputy Leader questions? A lot of people have taken time out of work to come here to this Members' Forum, and they haven't been able to submit their supplementary questions in a transparent and public way.
This was a short note. The information was given at short notice. He had to been called away, so that's why he's not here. And Councillor Mack obviously can't answer questions on behalf of the Strategies and Resources Committee, because that is for Councillor Dyer.
Lord Mayor, then what is the point of a Deputy Leader if they can't answer questions on behalf of the leader when they're not here.
Councillor Mack, would you like to respond
Same
very
point
quickly?
to
Then we
Labour
have to
leader,
conclude the
group
meeting.
leader.
Yeah, there is a complication with Deputy Leader and Vice Chair of Strategy and Resources, and depending on precisely what your question is and what policy area it could be going to, I think there is a point about distinguishing where it goes to. Me and Councillor Classic, as Vice Chair of Strategy and Resources, did not have an opportunity to go through and work out who and prepare, for both of us to prepare before this meeting. However, if we finish this meeting now, what we are going to do is go away and prepare for the public forum as a priority, to have that short slot to work out who's answering which question. But you must acknowledge, with this many questions, being able to prepare in the time that we had available, and for both me and Sarah, wasn't possible.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, and see you all again at 6 o'clock.